Shalom everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Pulse of Israel here in our eternal and ancestral homeland, the land of Israel, in our eternal, beautiful, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. I want you to listen to this short video of an IDF soldier fighting in Gaza. He recorded this video 2 weeks ago, but everything he says is still applicable today. Listen very closely.
עוד בוקר בעיר עזה, עוד במספר 40 ומי סופר כבר קם על הלחימה ובוודאי שמתם לב למספר הרבה יותר קשה מנזור שנאלצנו לקבור בימים האחרונים. לדבר הזה יש הקשר ישיר בשיטת הלחימה של צה"ל והתוצאות שלה. בתחילת הלחימה כמעט ולא חווינו התנגדות, צה"ל שטף פנימה עם כמויות אש מהאוויר מתותחנים עוד לפני שחיל הרגלים נכנס ולוחמים שלנו כמעט ולא פגשו אויב בעין. הדבר הזה השתנה בימים האחרונים בפשיטה על העיר ג'באליה. אנחנו חווים פה מחסור באש מהסיבה הפשוטה שאולי המנהיגים שלנו חזרו לתעדף את חיי האויב על פני החיילים שלנו. איך יכול להיות שחיל רגלים נכנס והבניינים עדיין עומדים על תילם? איך יכול להיות שלא קודשים את האזור הזה מהאוויר עוד לפני שנותנים לחיילים שלנו להיכנס פנימה? אומרים החיילים, הדברים האלה עולים גם מהקפקים, גם הגדים אומרים ומלינים על הדבר הזה. למה אין לנו מספיק אש? למה אנחנו לא נכנסים בשיטה חזקה כמו שצריך להיכנס עם צבא? קודם כל הפצצות חיל אוויר, אחר כך תותחנים ורק אחר כך להכניס את חיל הרגלים פנימה. תדע כל המבריה, כי חיי החיילים שלנו כרגע מועדפים פחות על ידי המנהיגים שלנו ומעדיפים לשמור אולי על חיי האויב שאולי יש שם חפים מפשע בתוך ג'באליה. תקשיבו טוב, אני פונה כאן בפנייה ממסר אליך, אדוני בנימין נתניהו, ראש הממשלה. תתחיל לדבר ערבית, תתחילו לקטוש את האויב עוד לפני שאתם מכניסים את החיילים שלנו פנימה. נמאס לנו לספוג אבדות לחינם.
All right, you heard that. That makes my blood boil. It is obscene to think that we are endangering our IDF soldiers fighting an evil, evil enemy because of immoral rules of engagement that are being imposed upon us by the higher echelons of the army. The question is, where's the pressure coming from? Why? Why are we risking the lives of our holy, holy IDF soldiers because of an immoral consideration for civilians of the enemy? And again, you've been following me. You know, all of Gaza is Hamas. They teach their children in kindergarten to hate Jews and kill Jews. And it's international funding, U.S. taxpayer money going to UNRWA and to the Palestinian Authority, where all their educational materials and textbooks and television programming is teaching these kids to kill Jews and how to kill Jews and to dream of killing Jews and dying as a martyr. So all of Gaza is Hamas. We still try to minimize civilian casualties, but they are taught to use their lives to protect terrorists. And this is what we're dealing with. Where did it come from? Why? Why are our soldiers' lives being sacrificed for this immoral aspect of trying to protect civilians of the enemy, and they're all an enemy? It's really a sad reality. So just yesterday, I quoted my friend Ariel Kahana, who is a journalist for the Israeli Israel Hayom paper. He has been following this issue closely, and he wrote that he has plenty of eyewitness testimonies from IDF soldiers in Gaza that they give targets to the Air Force to shoot. The Air Force flies over, and last minute, don't shoot, leaving our soldiers endangered to then have to deal with potential terrorists in these buildings that are not totally destroyed, endangering their lives. So instead of shooting and destroying as many of the buildings as possible, our soldiers are being used to do the fighting on the ground and endangering their lives. This is in addition to the tightening of the rules of engagement, which is making it even harder for our soldiers to shoot and defend themselves. And again, folks, understand, Hamas sometimes dress up like women. Hamas sometimes send out women and children to distract the soldiers so our soldiers do not shoot, and then Hamas shoots our soldiers. Hamas sometimes puts up white flags to distract our soldiers and then shoot at our soldiers. It is an evil, evil battlefield. They have split seconds to decide what to do, and then when imposed upon them these evil rules of engagement that make it even harder, this is one of the reasons we're losing so many soldiers. And it is known, as the soldier said, many soldiers' lives are being lost more since they started fighting down south than up in the northern Gaza. Why? Well, let's go through these following headlines. And understand, folks, we're going to beat our enemies, even though our hands are sort of tied behind our backs in trying to make sure we defeat them, but we will defeat them. But look at these headlines, okay? This is a headline from October 13th, just 1 week into the war. Blinken, U.S. continues to remind Israel to avoid harming Gaza civilians, right? U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who met with leaders in Qatar on Friday, this is the first week of the war, said the U.S. continues to remind Israel to avoid harming civilians. It's not about defeating Hamas. It's not about ensuring this evil that exists will never have the ability to massacre us again and burn and behead and rape our women as part of war again. No. They're more concerned about the civilians. Then we move, let's go up. November 3rd, here we go. Blinken again urges Israel to show restraint in campaign to destroy Hamas. When does America use restraint? When it bombs in Afghanistan or in Iraq? Well, it usually doesn't. But us, Israel, oh my God, we have to show restraint. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has applied the greatest pressure yet on the Israeli government to rethink its strategy in Gaza, calling for localized humanitarian pauses and insisting Israel cannot achieve long-term security solely through military means. Really? We can't defeat an evil enemy solely militarily? Only politically, which then allows them to live and rearm and fight us another day? This is what we're dealing with. But let's move on. November 11th. Blinken says more must be done to protect Gaza civilians beyond daily pauses. Again, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said that while Israel's decision to impose daily pauses in its bombardment of some parts of Gaza will help to reduce civilian casualties, more needs to be done. Why? No, more needs to be done to end the evil of Hamas as soon as possible, so that evil is gone and we save lives, both of civilians everywhere, and we're giving a message to the evil jihadist Muslim world. Don't you dare not only do this again in Israel, don't you dare do it anywhere in the world. That's what we have to do. A clear message to the Islamic jihadi world that this is unacceptable. You are destroyed and you are written off the face of history if you were involved in such evil, right? But no. Let's fast forward to November 28th. U.S. urges Israel to change tactics in Gaza. Biden administration officials want civilians protected and are pushing for precision strikes. So now we could see clearly why potentially Israel had to change its rules of engagement, specifically from the air. The U.S. is pressing Israel to modify its plans for the next phase of its campaign in Gaza to better protect civilians and rebut criticism that the White House has given Israeli forces carte blanche to wage its war with Hamas, right? We have to sacrifice our soldiers. We have to take longer to defeat this evil because of criticism the U.S. is getting for giving too much support for Israel to defeat evil. You get that? All right, but let's move forward. November 30th. You think this pressure is ending from the U.S.? No. Blinken urges Israel to avoid massive civilian losses in southern Gaza. You see that? U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken on Thursday told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel's military operations in southern Gaza must not repeat the massive loss of civilian life and displacement seen during the offensive in the north. So now we see why the soldier said what he said and how the soldiers in Gaza saw and continue to see a clear difference between how we fought in the north in the first weeks of the war and how we're fighting in the south now. We're not doing as much bombing and getting rid of the infrastructure as we did in the north. Why? Well, it seems clear because of tremendous pressure from the United States government under Biden and Blinken. And then we go to an editorial on December 1st, written in the Wall Street Journal, which clearly says, the Biden-Blinken rules of war for Israel. The U.S. tells Israelis how they must fight in Gaza, which could help Hamas. Straight out, written in an editorial in the Wall Street Journal on December 1st. But doesn't end there. Let's continue to December 24th. Biden presses Netanyahu on protecting Gaza civilians, discussing phasing of war. U.S. President Joe Biden discussed scaling back Israel's offensive in Gaza with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but did not request a halt to the fighting. The conversation came a day after Washington withheld its veto from a UN Security Council resolution calling for increased aid but not immediate ceasefire to Israel's war against Hamas, with Netanyahu expressing appreciation for the U.S.'s efforts to soften the language of the text. Biden declined to discuss most details of what he said with his long conversation with Netanyahu, calling it private. So on the one hand, yes, we still have to say thank you to the Biden administration for vetoing anti-Israel resolutions in the United Nations, and of course thank you for whatever aid, military aid, Israel is given, because unfortunately we are totally dependent for our munitions on the United States. As President Obama did when he was president in the middle of the Gaza war, I think in 2014, he withheld defensive rockets that Israel needed in order to shoot the Hamas, Islamic Jihad rockets out of the air. Withheld. He endangered Israel. So we know how much, unfortunately, we are tied to the whims of an American administration in literally endangering our lives by potentially withholding munitions we need to fight our war to defend ourselves. So on the one hand, we say thank you to the Biden administration, but on the other hand, they are putting strings attached. Like we have to listen to them and changing our rules of engagement and endangering our own soldiers so that we're taking the Biden administration's concerns of not allowing the world to see that they're giving too much support to Israel to do what's necessary to end the evil against us. And now the latest update. January 1st, 2024. Biden pressured Netanyahu to reduce airstrikes in Gaza. And again, President Biden pressured Netanyahu to focus on targeted operations, reduce wide-scale airstrikes, the New York Times report says. This is our reality. Our holy, holy IDF soldiers are losing their lives because of an immoral administration in Washington, which cares more about how they look to their political left or on the world stage in terms of supporting Israel, instead of caring about Israel getting rid of this evil, which is an evil that's out to destroy America, out to destroy the whole freedom-loving world. This is what we have to deal with. My bottom line, everyone, is we're going to win. Us, holy IDF soldiers in the Holy Land of Israel, we're going to defeat our enemy, even if it means, unfortunately, that we're going to lose more of our lives because of this immoral policy coming from the White House. But we will defeat our enemy. Your job is take these headlines, show them to your politicians, if you're in America, and say, what in the world is going on? How can we be telling Israel to endanger their lives while they are on the front line, not only defending all of Israel to ensure that this tragedy of October 7th never happens again, but to give a clear message to the jihadi Islamic world never to do this again anywhere in the freedom-loving world. That's why America and American politicians in the White House and all of the freedom-loving world should be supporting Israel in ending this evil ASAP. And that does not include putting constraints upon us that makes it hard for us to fight and destroy the evil culture of Hamas, which exists not just in Gaza, but in Judea and Samaria and other places in the Middle East. It's not just individual Hamas terrorists. If we get rid of the heads of Hamas, there will be more to replace them. It's giving a message to the world, especially the Islamic world, that we will not tolerate the education of kindergarten kids to kill Jews. And the only way Israelis will be safe in Israel is if we live in our ancestral homeland, which includes the Gaza Strip, and that those Arabs who believe in killing Jews, well, as Nikki Haley has said publicly, they should live in countries that they agree with the Hamas culture, where they agree with killing Jews and destroying the Jewish state of Israel. Go to Egypt, go to Jordan, go to Qatar, go to Iran, go to Iraq, go to Turkey. They shouldn't be living within us in Israel, in Gaza, in Judea and Samaria. That's the only solution. Pray, pray, pray for our holy IDF soldiers who are on the front line for the whole freedom-loving world. Signing off for another episode of the Pulse of Israel here in our eternal and ancestral homeland, the land of Israel, in our eternal, beautiful, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. If you are not yet a subscriber to our Pulse of Israel videos, just go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And if you like these videos and you agree that they should be seen by many more people, go click on the donate button on pulseofisrael.com every once in a while to support us to be able to have these videos promoted and seen by many more people. Shalom, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.